ain't no gunshots, but they getting low, 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 low.
Hey, what's up guys? In this video I'm going to show you how to change your thermal paste on your PlayStation 3. Now if you came from my last video on how to disassemble the fat PlayStation 3 and you want to change your thermals, go back and watch that video. It's on my channel. I'll probably link it in the description. But if you're here just for the thermal paste video, then I'll show you what you're going to need to do. So what you're going to need a high solution of alcohol. You're going to need a microfiber cloth or toilet paper. It's not recommended to use that. It's better to use a microfiber cloth. You're going to need a high quality thermal paste. When it comes to this, you don't want to be cheap, because if you are cheap, it's not going to help at all. So now, what you're going to want to do is start with your, doesn't matter what you start with, I'm just going to start with the heat sinks. So, let me make sure you guys can see. Go ahead and get your microfiber cloth. As you can see, mine's still dirty, I haven't really washed it. By the way, if you do open up your console down to the thermal paste, every time you take your console apart and separate the heatsink from the CPU and GPU, you're going to want to change your thermal paste, because if you don't, you're going to get air bubbles in there, and that's not good for the heat transfer. So just keep in mind that if you do take your console apart a lot, you're going to go through thermal paste pretty fast. So go ahead and damp the microfiber cloth and start working your way onto the heatsink. Now try not to touch the heatsink. You don't want to get the oils from your skin onto it. Now mine came off fairly easy, but if you've never changed a thermal paste before, it's going to feel like it won't come off. Just keep working on it and it'll eventually just all come off. Because most likely that if you've never changed a thermal paste, is that after 6 years the thermal paste is going to dry out and it's not going to be any good. So you're going to want to change it. Even if you don't know how, I'm going to explain the best way to change out your thermal paste. So finish that one. So you should have a nice clean surface like that. I don't know why it's kind of like dark. I don't know if it's marked from the thermal paste, but that won't come off. So here we got the other heatsink. Alright, so after you finish the heat sinks, go put those aside and let them dry. They should dry fairly quick. And now we're gonna move on to the motherboard. Alright, so keep in mind that high quality thermal paste, thermal compound, usually is conductive. So you're gonna want to try to not get it on the motherboard, because you could short it out. So keep that in mind when you're changing it. So obviously first we have to take off the old thermal paste. Also guys, keep in mind that when you do take off old thermal paste, it's gonna kind of be all dry out. It's gonna get on the board. Make sure before you put it all back together you get all that off. I know that Sony does use some really shitty thermal paste, but you just want to make sure to get that all off the board. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but the higher solution alcohol is better. You don't have to get the sides if you got it on the side of the CPU or GPU. I'm not sure which one is which, but you don't have to worry about the sides. Just make sure you get the top completely cleaned off, because you want a really flat, perfect connection. So if you do have some kind of like something on there, it's going to mess the whole thing up. And that's pretty much the reason why you want to use a microfiber cloth. So I'm going to go ahead and go over everything once again, just to make sure. I can still see that I have a little bit of compound on there. So go over it one more time to make sure. So they should be clean enough so that you could read the text on them. So the RSX chips. So yeah, that's pretty much how you remove thermal compound. Also, you could take your microfiber cloth, damp it, and rub on the kind of clean off the other chips with the alcohol, just to clean the connections on them. You don't have to. It's really not going to do anything, but you know, it will just clean things up because the alcohol will dry up and it won't harm anything. Alright, so next what we're going to have to do is put the frame back together on the PlayStation. Now, if you just came here for the thermal paste part, then how to remove it and all that, then you're not going to need to stay for the whole video. But if you came for my last video on how to disassemble it and change the thermal paste, just go ahead and stay through the rest of the video. Alright, so got the base of the PlayStation 3 here. Make sure you can see. Alright, so go ahead and get your heat sinks and place them in here. Now they have on my PlayStation, there's the heat sinks on mine have little indents where these plastic clips kind of go into. Just match it up. Alright, so after you put that in, there's nothing holding that down. Get the fan and put the fan over it. Just like that. I guess so. Next, what you're going to do is get the back panel of the PlayStation here, where the power connection goes into, and the vents with all the HDMI and Ethernet cable ports. Now this will just slide down. It's kind of hard to get, so I can't really explain it, but just you'll know when you get it right. Just it slides in and down, and it should fit flush with the back. Next, go ahead and get the screws. So these screws right here, they look like this. They're the exact same ones like the big ones that were used for the motherboard. So go ahead and tighten this down. Now there's only 4 screws holding this down, so keep that in mind. Alright, next what you're going to want to do is get the bottom shield of your the bottom shield of your motherboard. Keep in mind, don't touch this. I accidentally just touched it, but try not to touch it. It's kind of like thermal paste, but in like a pad. So I call it thermal pad. There's 2 of them. If I only have 1 because the other one's probably stuck on the motherboard. Also, there might be some thermal paste kind of on the edge of where the where the heat sinks are. Go ahead and clean this off too. You don't want anything on top of the heatsink or CPU, GPU chips. You want it completely flat. If it's not sitting flat, you won't have a good seal connection, airtight. So make sure you make it spotless and nothing on it. So just keep that in mind. So I got a little bit, and I'll just wipe this off. Alright, so now you need to get the motherboard. And now we have to apply the thermal paste onto the chips of the motherboard. You don't want to put any thermal paste on the heat sinks. You always put it on the chips. So I'm going to put this to the side. Now, there's a lot of outdated videos on YouTube on how to change thermal paste, and they show that you have to kind of get a credit card or some kind of card and spread it around. Now that you're not supposed to do that, because when you put it together, you're just going to get a bunch of air bubbles and everything in there, and that's bad. So the best method to putting on thermal paste, in my opinion, is to just use the dot method. Put like a piece-sized dot.
Just go ahead and put it on there. Yep, use as much as you want, because you want to keep this thing nice and cool, and the paste is what keeps it cool. Now try to keep it away from the orange, because the orange is lava.
And then when you tighten the pressure plates, it will squeeze out the thermal paste and spread it along the chips.
Go ahead and get your CPU fan out. It doesn't matter if it's dirty, it's going right on that paste. Just squish it in there. Uh-oh. Oh, damn it. Oh, we got some on the orange.
As you saw before, I got a pretty good amount. You don't need to get every inch of the whole chip. You just need to get majority of the middle. So, spreading it isn't good, so I'll show you how to do this the best way as possible. So, all you need to do is put a pea-sized dot.
P method. Just a simple little P in the middle, and then you press it down, and watch how it evenly distributes over the cores in the center. Very nice.
And make sure it's focused in. So, right in the middle. By the way, once your PS3 starts heating up, you'll notice that the, well, you won't notice it, but the thermal paste will actually spread out more. That's all you need, like that. That might actually be a little bit too much. You don't want to put more. Don't think that the more you put, the better it's going to be. That's not the case. If you have a different model PlayStation, I know that some don't have the same size CPU, GPU. I know that the Super Slim has a really weird RSX kind of chip heatsink, so you don't want to put a really, really small dot for that. So that's all you need on the heatsinks here. Go ahead and get the base of your PlayStation 3. I'm going to go ahead and put this aside for a second so I could... Now this could be a little tricky because I know that the fat model, it's hard to fit all together, so match up the plugs with the CPU and GPU chips facing down. So put the connections, the HDMI and Ethernet and all those connections in the back, put those in first, then put the front down. Now you're going to notice that it's not going to sit properly, and you'll notice that if you look at your USBs, it's not all the way down. That's because this black clip here, you gotta push it back, and it'll just fall into place, just like that. Now, before you start tightening everything down, you have to make sure and look at the USB ports to make sure that they line up. That's the best way I could explain it. So if they all look lined up and everything kind of looks flat, go ahead and get the top shield of your motherboard and put that over it. Now go ahead and get your pressure plates. Sorry, I forgot what they were called. Now you don't want to tighten one side down all the way. You kind of want to go back and forth. So do a couple spins and move back to the other screw. So it'll evenly distribute the thermal paste across the chips and the heatsink. And make sure, don't think that tightening these will stretch out the thermal paste, because if you tighten these too much, you're just going to break the holes, because it's plastic, you'll just strip them out. And then you won't have a very good connection, and you will most likely just break your PlayStation. So, as you can see right there, I gotta tighten these down all the way. I'm just gonna make sure. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and start putting the screws on, and once we do that, I'm gonna put a little pressure where the heat sinks are, or the CPU and GPU chips are, just to make sure that the thermal paste is gonna be distributed. So, there's 4 screws. The bigger screws here, they're not the fine threaded, they have a bigger thread, and there's 4 of them that go on the edge of the PlayStation right here. So I put these down, making sure you can see. So also keep in mind, like I said before, if you plan on taking your PlayStation apart in a few weeks, I wouldn't recommend changing your thermal paste out. But I also, just put it back together if you plan on doing something like modifying it or something. But I wouldn't recommend, if you did do that, then play it for a very long period of time, because you'll notice that it will start overheating, it'll start freezing. Again, if you can't really see where the screws go, there's arrows pointing to where all the screws go on this side here, so just make sure you line them up. because I actually started to put it in the wrong hole. So next, get the same size screw, and right where the metal starts, right here where there's an arrow, put a screw in right there. And there should be one more screw left with the same thread that you got from the motherboard, and it should go right onto the green part of the motherboard. So there shouldn't be any metal, and it goes right there. Next, get the small fine threaded screw right here, and go ahead and get your small Phillips head, and it goes right in the front. And you'll know where this one goes if you can't see on the camera, because there is an arrow with an M. I'm not sure what the M stands for. It might stand for micro screw. I have no idea, but that's how you'll know where it goes. So then in the back you get the same small threaded screw. Go ahead and tighten that in. Next, get your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna. Now push in to the this way. Push it in. For you guys, it's going to be up. So push it in up and then down, because it's actually, there's like a little metal clip. So if you try to put it in straight down, it's not going to go in. And then go ahead and tighten it in with the fine threaded screw. Alright, after you do that, get the connection for your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna and plug that in. It should go straight down. Get your fan connector, plug that in. Then get the ground screw that was used for the yellow and green ground wire, and go ahead and tighten that up. I recommend using the large Phillips head. Alright guys, so next what you have to do is put the top shield of your HDD, your hard drive, back on. It's just a plate with 2 screws. Go ahead and put that back in. They're fine threaded screws. So what I recommend doing is just taking your thumbs and then putting a little pressure over the chips. Just a little bit. You don't want to put too much and like damage the board. Alright, so after you do that, you could start putting it back together. Now, if it's your first time changing your thermal paste, you might want to take it apart and just look to see how you did. I would recommend doing that so you know if you put too much or too little. So that's what I recommend. You don't have to do that. If you feel confident in how good you did it, then just stick with it. Next, get your optical drive. Place this back on top. Get your the ribbon cable, lift up the black clip and slide this into place. Be very gentle, because if you mess up the connection, the golden connection, then it's not going to work. Take the power for the optical drive and plug this in. Next, get your power supply, plug in the clip back here, and should just snap in. Line up the screws and everything. It should be pretty easy. And then push it. Now, make sure with the optical drive power connection so you don't smash it. Then you're going to want to push down where the prongs are so it slides into place. Now, it might feel like it doesn't fit correctly. When you put the screws in, it's going to all fit flat. So don't worry about that. Alright, so get your your large Phillips head and get the screws that are smooth on top of the big thread. Put those in on the side here. Let me show you in a second. So the innermost holes on the power supply, right here. So there's going to be one right here. So there's a hole here, one here, and one right here. The inner 2 are the ones you want to put the screws in. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. Alright, so next get your fine threaded screw. It's shorter compared to the other 2, and it just goes down the one right next to here, not the tall one. I don't know if you can see on camera, but I'll show you in a second. Alright, next, flip it around to the front. you're going to notice that you have an open slot right here for the last screw. It's the it's the long fine threaded screw. Get your small Phillips head and tighten this in. And then get your cable for the power supply. Plug this in. Alright, after you've assembled pretty much the whole internal of the console, go ahead and get the top. All you gotta do is line up the front. Now the top of it should just hang over the bottom just by a hair. You'll notice if you feel it, line it up so both sides are perfectly flat with each other, and then push it down. And the clip should lock into place, so if you lift it up it shouldn't come back up. If it's not sitting down properly, make sure you check the components in there, make sure everything's sitting nice and flat. So next, get out of the 7 screws that you removed on the top, get the smallest one you have, and get the big Phillips head and put it to wherever there's an S on the top of your PS3. From there, just put in all the rest of the screws. After you do that, go ahead and get the top panel of your PlayStation. Now the words should sit like this, so this is the bottom if it sits vertical, so just like that. Put it down where it's lower, where it hangs off on the bottom, and just slide it up. It should sit very snug on top. Really, it shouldn't slide up too easy. Next, get the Torx T10 security head, or security screw. Go ahead and get the little plastic rubber thing and put that in. It only goes in one way, just like that. Next, get your hard drive, and it should slide in just like this. Push it in all the way. Make sure it's got a good connection. Get the screw. It's blue, so you'll know that it goes there. Get the small Phillips head and tighten this in. Then get the plate. There's a little clip right here, so go ahead and push this on one side and snap it in, just like that. So as you can see, we fully assembled the PlayStation and changed the thermal paste, so it should be running a lot better now. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and it helped you at all, please give it a like and subscribe for more content like this. I probably will doing other videos just like this in the future. So thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah.